Chair recognizes Mr. Grothman from Wisconsin.
Yeah, we're focusing here on funds, but obviously the funds are made up of many individual businesses, right? And I wondered if you could, I wonder if there's a database or a place where I could look up the ESG scores on, say, any publicly traded company. Is that a public thing, or do the scores vary by mutual fund by mutual fund?
Yeah, the scores are going to vary, but I know Schwab has a tool that shows ESG ratings. We had a piece published within the Texas Public Policy Foundation that showed that an American business that owns minerals, that's all they own is minerals in the United States, actually had a lower ESG rating than 3 Chinese companies, one of which has coal in the name. The China Coal Energy Company has a higher ESG rating than an American.
Why is that?
It's just because I believe it is political in nature, and I would imagine this Chinese communist-controlled company has probably signed on and said that they're going to meet the terms of the Paris Accord while they have their fingers crossed behind their back.
Okay, I see guns is one of the things that people, does that include retail or just manufacturing of guns?
Manufacturing and retail, you've got both of those that are being targeted by financial institutions that are denying access to capital and insurance.
So in other words, there are individual retailers out there who get a higher ESG score if they don't sell guns?
Correct, and then they're losing access to credit card processing. There are companies out there that will not allow credit card transactions to take place at retail gun stores.
Okay, well, that's an interesting thing. It looks like there's a lot of diversity. I take that diversity means employees, diversity by race, presumably diversity by gender, diversity by sexual preference. Is that so?
I would say that leans heavily into the S in ESG, yeah, and DEI is a close cousin of ESG, if not directly related.
Okay, so a company that gets a higher score is more likely to discriminate against, I don't know, discriminate against certain ethnic groups, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and to basically to have policies that they're going to employ people not based on merit.
Okay. Is there any reason why these companies aren't publicized? Do they think they make themselves more popular? I mean, I'd like to know if companies are hiring or promoting not based on merit. Is that something that anybody's making an effort of getting out there?
I can't recall. It seems like there's a couple of companies out there, maybe Second Vote Advisors is one that's doing a list, and I know there's some other lists. I'll be happy to follow up with some information on that.
Okay. I know some of the things in the notes here imply that some of these policies, well, they may be popular with the fringe element in our society, maybe popular with wealthy people who don't have to worry about what their rate of return is, that overall a lot of these policies that the companies have to implement are unpopular with the American public. Is that true?
Absolutely, yeah.
Could you rattle off a couple of questions? A couple examples?
Well, I mentioned in my opening remarks about the president of Sri Lanka. When he fled his country, he's a wealthy individual and was able to take a government plane. And where did he take it? He took it to Singapore, a place with the second highest per capita CO2 emissions on the face of the earth. But here he is pushing in. He's wealthy. He's got access to military equipment. He can go wherever he wants to go. He didn't go to Malawi, which is at net zero. They were suffering a cholera outbreak at the time. He went to one of the wealthiest countries with high CO2 emissions that has no goal and will never meet CO2 or net zero CO2. You've got other people, Al Gore, John Kerry, and others that fly around in private jets and profess the rest of us.
He's just a hypocrite. We all know that. The millionaire, you know, the limousine liberal. I mean, you know, I hope people are familiar with that ilk. I guess the question that I'm looking for here, though, are there any large companies where you could go through and say that, you know, you're hiring not based on merit, we're rewarding a company that won't sell guns. On energy front, we're rewarding people who harm American energy. Is there a place where these companies are easily accessible and we could publicize them?
I know there are some public records of that, and I'll just have to follow up with the specific lists and locations of that list.
Yeah, and one other thing, with regard to discrimination, with pride, discrimination on the base of race, which is all illegal, have these companies who pride themselves on this discrimination, do they ever open themselves up to lawsuits, or is this something the Department of Justice or EEOC ought to be looking at?
Yeah, I believe that the New York City Pension Fund is under lawsuit from some of its pensioners because of poor performance, and you have...
Not per performance. I'm saying the company that gets the high ESG score. If they are getting a higher ESG score because they pride themselves on discriminating against white people?
Sorry, the gentleman's time is
Okay.